I'm not a lawyer, but this is the part 1 recap of day 2 of the Take Care of Maya trial, and it was a lot. Before we get into it, have you watched the documentary yet? There is a ton in the doc that I purposely did not include in my last video because number 1, I want you to watch the doc. And number 2, everything in the doc will not be allowed in the trial. Everything isn't admissible, so we're gonna have to see how it all plays out. So I know I left some stuff out. I know. Okay, now let's get to the recap. Just as a reminder, the family is suing for medical malpractice, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, which again just means that the hospital has done something so outrageous that it has caused damage that has forever changed this family. That goes into like punitive damages. So today there were a total of 4 witnesses, and it seemed like the goal was to lay down the timeline and condition of Maya and her disease. The first witness was this guy whose name is Brandon Woodard. He was a neighbor of the Kowalski family. He lives like 4 houses down. And he talked about how every year around the 3rd or 4th of July, the neighborhood had a bike parade where all the kids in the neighborhood would decorate their bikes and then like ride around. Well, on July 3rd, 2015, after that year's bike parade, Maya seemed to have been in like sudden and very agonizing distress. And that was the start of her health issues. According to this neighbor, she gradually worsened over time to eventually she was in a wheelchair. And then the family took her to Mexico for this ketamine treatment and she got better.
Still in a wheelchair, but
overall physical
strength
health
getting better. She liked to get in the pool. I believe they put in solar just to keep the pool water warmer and more comfortable so she could keep getting strength back.
By July 4th of 2016, Maya had improved quite a bit, but she wasn't well enough to ride her bike for the bike parade. So instead, she was able to drive a golf cart. She was able to put her foot on the gas pedal in order to drive it. The neighbor then testified about how stressed and distraught Jack and Beata were while Maya was at the hospital.
So the next door neighbor to Jack had just a handful of couples over for New Year's Eve, and at midnight when the bell dropped, Beata just broke down. You know, the ball drops, you usually kiss your spouse or say Happy New Year, and she lost it.
About a week after the New Year's Eve incident, the neighbor has a birthday party for his son, and Jack and Kyle came to the party, but Beata didn't. And by morning of the next day, Beata was discovered unalive in her garage. On cross-examination, the hospital attorneys asked the neighbor this.
Is it correct, though, that she never walked again between December of 2015 and entering into Johns Hopkins?
I don't recall.
You don't recall one way or the
I
other?
don't recall one way or the other.
Okay.
Okay, witness number 2 was this guy whose name is Robert Reines, and he is Jack's younger brother. Robert worked in law enforcement. At one point, he was a detective. His wife was a nurse like Beata. So like the neighbor, Robert testified how greatly Maya had improved following the trip to Mexico.
After the Mexico, she was doing much better. She was greatly improving.
He then talked about how devastated Jack and Beata were while Maya was in the hospital, and how on the morning of his 50th birthday, his brother Jack called him and said that Beata had ended her life. At this point in the trial, they played the 911 call, which was utterly heartbreaking to listen to. From there, Robert talked about the poor condition Maya was in when she finally came home from the hospital, and by this time her mom is no longer alive, and how she worked tirelessly to get better, how she was determined. But according to him, the family has forever been changed. Jack isn't as funny anymore. Kids don't laugh as much anymore. Kyle, the son, doesn't really play out in the yard like he used to. So like things like that. On cross-examination, the hospital's lawyers asked Robert about a second trip that Maya took to Mexico to get a booster of the ketamine. Here's a video.
Okay, you recall that they did go back to Mexico a second time.
Objection.
I don't recall.
And they also mentioned how leading up to Maya being admitted into Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, that Maya was in pain.
She was in pain, but it was greatly getting better. She was getting better every day.
So are you aware that she was going to see Dr. Hannah on 9/27, 9/28, 9/29, 9/30, October 5th, and October 6th for ketamine treatments?
No, I knew she saw Dr. Hannah.
Okay, come back for part 2. We still have 2 more witnesses.